When people talk about relationships, when they talk about respect, about being treated like royalty, they often start with the wrong question. They ask, who is he? What does he bring to the table? Does he have ambition? Does he have vision? Can he give me what I want? But before you ever ask who he is, you must know who you are. Because if you do not know yourself, if you do not know your own value, your own mission, your own boundaries, you will get lost in his identity. You will try to live through his strength instead of building your own. And that is the mistake that keeps so many people stuck, frustrated, and unfulfilled. Knowing who you are is not just a phrase, it is a foundation. It means you are rooted. It means you are grounded. It means you do not shake when someone else walks into the room. You do not collapse when someone rejects you. You do not crumble when life puts pressure on you. Because you know exactly who you are. And when you know this, you stand tall, you speak with authority, you command respect without even asking for it. That is why this keynote matters more than any other, because without it, you cannot build real power. You cannot expect to be treated like a queen. You cannot expect progress in life, only disappointment. So how do you know who you are? First, you must face yourself, strip away the noise, strip away the titles. Strip away the expectations that other people have placed on you since you were a child. Parents told you what you should be. Society told you how you should act. Friends and partners told you what you are worth. But that is not identity. That is programming. Your real identity comes when you silence those voices and ask yourself, what do I truly want? What do I stand for? What do I believe in when nobody is watching? Until you answer those questions, you are just drifting, and drifting people always end up serving someone else's mission. The second step is to define your mission. Without a mission, you are lost. Without a mission, you depend on others to give you direction, and that is where people lose their power. They become followers instead of leaders in their own life. Your mission is the fire that drives you forward. It does not have to be world-changing at first. It can be personal, it can be intimate, it can be as simple as saying, I will not settle, I will not shrink, I will not live below my potential. That mission grows with time, but you must set it clearly, because if you don't, someone else will give you theirs, and when you are living someone else's mission, you will always feel empty, always feel like something is missing, no matter how much they give you. The third step is to build standards. Do not wait for people to tell you how you deserve to be treated. You decide that. You establish your standards and you enforce them with action. Too many people want to be treated like royalty, but they lower their standards when loneliness comes, when fear creeps in, when insecurity whispers in their ear. That is why knowing who you are is so important. It gives you the strength to say no. It gives you the power to walk away. It gives you the authority to demand better without begging for it. Your standards are the walls of your castle, and if you build them weak, anyone can walk in and destroy what you've built. The fourth step is to take responsibility. Knowing who you are is not just about what you expect from others. It is about what you expect from yourself. Do you show up every day with discipline? Do you take care of your mind, your body, your character? Do you follow through on your word? Because if you cannot respect yourself, no one else will. If you break your promises to yourself, do not expect loyalty from others. Responsibility is the crown you place on your own head. It says, I am in control of me. I am not waiting for rescue. I am not waiting for validation. I lead myself first, and when you lead yourself, you earn the right to be followed, to be respected, to be treated as more than average. The fifth step is to embrace growth over perfection. Too many people say, I don't know who I am yet, so I cannot move forward. That is wrong. You do not discover yourself in one moment. You do not sit in silence one day and suddenly have a perfect identity carved out in stone. You discover yourself through progress, through action, through trial and error. Every time you take a step, you learn more about yourself. Every time you succeed, you see your strength. Every time you fail, you see your resilience. Identity is not a destination, it is a journey. And if you focus on progress, not perfection, you will become more certain, more powerful, more unshakable with each step you take. And finally, you must understand this truth: when you know who you are, you never chase, you attract, you never beg, you command. You never wonder what someone else can give you. You already give it to yourself. And that is the secret that makes men treat you like a queen. They sense it. They feel it. They know they cannot manipulate you. They cannot break you. They cannot play with you. Because you know who you are before you ever ask who he is. Too often, people enter relationships, friendships, and partnerships with blind eyes. They ask, who is this person? What can he give me? Can he protect me, support me, elevate me? But the truth is, you cannot measure someone else if you have not measured yourself first. You cannot understand who he is if you are still confused about who you are. Without self-awareness, you judge him by your insecurities, not your strength. Without clarity, you look at him as the answer to your questions instead of realizing you already hold the answers inside you. That is why knowing who you are must always come first. Knowing yourself is not just about personality or preferences. It is about foundation. It is about identity, values, purpose, and boundaries. If you have no foundation, you are like a house built on sand. Any storm will knock you down. Any charming man with smooth words can walk into your life, shake your emotions, and take control of your direction. But when you know who you are unshakable. You do not bend just to be accepted. You do not compromise just to be loved. You do not give away your crown just because someone tells you they can build you a throne. The first part of knowing yourself is defining your values. What do you stand for? What do you refuse to tolerate? What principles guide your choices? Without values, you will bend under pressure. You will compromise when temptation comes. You will accept less than you deserve because you do not even know what deserve means for you. But when your values are clear, they act like a compass. They point you in the right direction, even when emotions try to pull you off course. They give you the courage to walk away from anyone who does not align with your mission. That is how you protect yourself, not by controlling him, but by mastering yourself. The second part of knowing yourself is recognizing your strengths and weaknesses. Too many people hide from their weaknesses as if admitting them makes them weak. No, the opposite is true. Ignoring weakness makes you weak. Facing weakness makes you strong. When you acknowledge your weaknesses, you remove the power of shame. You stop pretending. You stop hiding. And then you can begin to build. You can transform those weaknesses into lessons, into areas of growth. At the same time, you must recognize your strengths. You must celebrate them. You must own them without apology, because if you do not know what makes you powerful, someone else will convince you that you are powerless. The third part is setting your boundaries. Boundaries are not walls to keep love out. They are gates to let respect in. If you do not know where your lines are, you will always let people cross them. You will always end up hurt, wondering why others take advantage of you. But the truth is, people can only cross lines that you never drew. Boundaries are self-respect in action. They tell the world, this is how I expect to be treated. This is the level I operate at. If you cannot rise to meet it, you cannot stay. And when you hold firm to those boundaries, you stop being an option, you become the standard. The fourth part is embracing independence. Knowing who you are means you can stand alone. It does not mean you do not want connection, but it means connection is a choice, not a necessity for survival. Too many people look at a man and think, I need him to feel complete. But if you need someone to complete you, you are already broken. You must come complete to the table. You must come whole. You must be able to say, I choose you not because I need you, but because I want to build with you. That is the difference between desperation and strength, between chasing validation and commanding respect. The fifth part is vision. Do you know where you are going? Do you have a clear picture of the future you are building? If you do not, you will get swept into his vision, his plans, his goals. And that may sound good at first, but soon you will feel empty. Because you are not living your mission, you are living his. Vision is power. Vision is direction. Vision is the difference between wandering and building. When you know who you are, you also know where you are going. And when a man sees that, he recognizes your authority, your clarity, your strength. He knows you are not waiting for him to rescue you. You are leading yourself forward. And finally, knowing yourself means refusing to shrink. Society will try to make you small. People will tell you to tone down, to stop being too loud, too ambitious, too strong. But queens are never small. Queens never shrink. They expand, they rise, they lead. Knowing who you are means you accept all of yourself, your fire, your flaws, your brilliance, your scars. You own them without apology. And when you do that, you radiate power that cannot be faked, a presence that cannot be ignored, a standard that cannot be lowered. There is a trap that countless people fall into when it comes to relationships and respect. They rush to analyze the other person. They want to know his job, his character, his ambition, his loyalty, his ability to lead, his ability to protect. But before you ever place him under a microscope, you must put the mirror in front of yourself. Because if you do not know who you are, you will always misjudge who he is. You will see him through the lens of your own confusion. You will project your insecurities onto him and then blame him for not fulfilling you. But if you know who you are, you look at him from a position of clarity, not desperation. You evaluate from strength, not weakness. Knowing who you are is the first filter. It is the lens through which you see the world. Without it, everything is blurry. When you know yourself, you do not waste time entertaining the wrong people because you recognize immediately who fits and who does not. But if you are unsure of your worth, you will try to force connections, you will ignore red flags, you will cling to people who do not align with your path, and you will wonder why they keep disappointing you. The truth is they did not change, you simply didn't know who you were, so you allowed them to define you. The first element of self-knowledge is identity. Who are you when no one is watching? Who are you without titles, without roles, without someone else's approval? Too many people define themselves by relationships. I am his partner, I am his support, I am his dream. But if you remove him from the picture, who are you? If you cannot answer that question, then you are not standing in power. You are standing in dependency, and dependency will never command respect. True power comes when you can say, this is me, this is my mission, this is my identity, whether anyone else accepts it or not. The second element is self-worth. If you do not know your value, you will settle for less every time. You will tolerate disrespect. You will excuse bad behavior. You will stay in situations that shrink you because you secretly believe you do not deserve better. But when you know your worth, you stop negotiating with disrespect. You stop lowering your standards for the sake of keeping peace. You understand that your time, your energy, and your presence are precious resources not to be wasted. That mindset alone shifts how others treat you. Men will rise to the level of your standards when they see you will not compromise them. The third element is clarity of purpose. Without purpose, you drift. And when you drift, you cling to others to give you direction. That is how people lose themselves. They attach their identity to someone else's mission because they have none of their own. But when you know who you are, you also know what you are building. You have a vision for your life, and you are moving toward it. Then when you ask who he is, you are not asking from a place of neediness. You are asking from alignment. Does his mission align with mine? Does his vision complement mine? Can we build something greater together, or will I lose myself if I join him? That is a powerful question, and only someone who knows themselves can ask it with confidence. The fourth element is emotional control. When you do not know yourself, your emotions control you. You fall for empty words. You get swept up in attention. You confuse chemistry for commitment. But when you know yourself, your emotions serve you instead of ruling you. You do not get carried away by temporary feelings because you are anchored in permanent truth. You can enjoy attraction without being blinded by it. You can appreciate effort without ignoring actions. You can evaluate calmly because you are not desperate to be chosen. That emotional control is what separates leaders from followers, royalty from commoners. The fifth element is authenticity. To know who you are means to live without masks. Too many people put on masks to be accepted. They pretend to be what they think he wants, hoping he will choose them. But the mask always slips, and when it does, resentment follows because you were never loved for who you truly are, only for the role you played. Authenticity removes that game. When you know who you are, you show up as yourself from the start. You are not afraid of rejection because you understand that rejection of the authentic you is simply redirection to where you belong. And when acceptance comes, it is real because it is based on truth, not performance. The sixth element is independence of spirit. Knowing yourself means you are whole. You are not half of anything waiting to be completed. You are not broken waiting to be fixed. You are already complete. You are already powerful. A partner may add to your life, but he does not define it. That independence is magnetic. It commands respect. It forces others to rise to your level because they see that you will never lower yourself to theirs. That is how you set the tone, not by chasing, but by being so rooted in who you are that others have no choice but to treat you accordingly. And the final element is self-leadership. If you cannot lead yourself, you will never attract someone who will lead you with respect. Leadership begins within. It begins with discipline, with responsibility, with accountability. It begins with you setting your own standard every single day. When you know who you are, you lead yourself with conviction, and that example radiates outward. Men respect it. They recognize it. They cannot ignore it. Because leadership is power, and power always commands treatment that reflects it. One of the greatest mistakes people make is rushing into relationships without first establishing who they are. They look at him, analyze him, measure his potential, his character, his lifestyle, his promises, and his ability to provide, but they skip the most critical step, defining themselves. Without self-definition, without self-awareness, you are always at risk of being defined by someone else. And when you let others define you, you lose your identity, you lose your power, and you lose the ability to command respect. That is why, before you ever ask who he is, you must know who you are. Knowing who you are is about more than surface-level traits. It is about depth, about core beliefs, about the values that drive your decisions. If you do not take time to identify what truly matters to you, you will adapt to what matters to him, and you will wake up one day realizing you have been living his life instead of your own. This happens all the time. Someone attaches themselves to another person without clarity of self, and they mold themselves into whatever they think will keep the relationship alive. They silence their voice, they compromise their dreams, they shrink their power just to be accepted. And while that may work temporarily, it always leads to resentment, because you cannot live forever as a version of yourself that isn't authentic. The first part of knowing yourself is being brutally honest about your core values. Values are the non-negotiables. They are the rules you live by, whether others agree with them or not. When you are clear about your values, you become unshakable. You cannot be manipulated into betraying yourself. You cannot be persuaded to tolerate what goes against your principles. For example, if honesty is a core value, you do not excuse lies just because you want to keep the relationship. If respect is a core value, you do not tolerate disrespect in any form. When you know your values, you do not need to announce them constantly. They show through your choices and through the way you carry yourself. The second part of knowing yourself is self-awareness of your strengths and weaknesses. Strengths give you confidence, and weaknesses give you direction for growth. Many people either exaggerate their strengths or deny their weaknesses, and both are dangerous. When you exaggerate strengths, you develop arrogance without substance. When you deny weaknesses, you remain blind to areas that need growth. But when you embrace both, you walk in balance. You know what you bring to the table with certainty, and you know what you must continue to develop with humility. That balance is power because it gives you confidence without delusion and humility without weakness. The third part is emotional discipline. If you do not know yourself, your emotions will control you, and you will interpret him based on your highs and lows. If you feel lonely, you will overvalue his attention. If you feel insecure, you will cling to his validation. If you feel desperate, you will excuse behavior you would otherwise reject. But when you know yourself, you recognize your emotions without letting them dictate your choices. You can feel desire without losing judgment. You can feel attraction without ignoring red flags. You can feel connection without handing over your power. Emotional discipline is a mark of someone who knows who they are because they no longer live at the mercy of temporary feelings. The fourth part is vision. Knowing yourself means knowing where you are going. If you have no vision for your life, you will be drawn into his vision, whether it aligns with you or not. And that may sound appealing at first, but it will eventually suffocate you because you were never created to abandon your mission. Your vision may be personal growth, career, success, family, or legacy, but whatever it is, it must be clear. Once you are rooted in vision, you ask the right question when you meet someone. Does his direction align with mine? Can we walk together without me losing myself? Without vision, you are vulnerable to distraction. With vision, you cannot be easily led astray. The fifth part is boundaries. Boundaries are the external proof that you know yourself internally. They are the visible expression of your self-respect. When you know yourself, you draw clear boundaries about what you accept and what you reject. Boundaries are not built on fear, they are built on clarity. You do not need to threaten, beg, or argue. You simply enforce the standard you live by. If someone cannot honor that, you walk away because you are too anchored in who you are to compromise for less. People will always test boundaries, but when you hold them firm, you teach them how to treat you. Without boundaries, you are open to anything. With boundaries, you are protected from everything that weakens you. The sixth part is independence. Independence does not mean you do not want connection. It means you are not dependent on it for survival. Too many people ask who he is out of desperation, hoping he will be the missing piece of their puzzle. But you must not be a puzzle waiting to be solved. You must be whole on your own. When you know yourself, you approach relationships from choice, not necessity. You do not need someone to complete you. You do not need someone to validate you. You are already validated by the work you put into building yourself, by the respect you give yourself, by the discipline that defines your daily life. Independence makes you powerful because it makes you free. The seventh part is authenticity. When you know yourself, you no longer wear masks. You no longer change your personality to fit what others want. You no longer shrink your voice to avoid rejection. You no longer pretend to be less intelligent, less capable, or less ambitious just to make someone else comfortable. Authenticity means you show up as your true self, unfiltered and unapologetic. And when you show up like that, you attract people who truly belong in your life, not people who are drawn to a version of you that doesn't exist. Authenticity weeds out the unworthy and magnetizes the worthy. The final part is self-leadership. To know who you are means you lead yourself with discipline, consistency, and strength. You do not wait for someone else to guide you. You do not wait for someone else to push you. You set your own standard and rise to meet it every day. Self-leadership means you hold yourself accountable before you hold anyone else accountable. It means you take responsibility for your life, your progress, your growth. And when you lead yourself, you earn the natural respect of others because leadership is not demanded. It is demonstrated. Many people spend endless energy trying to figure out who someone else is. They study his character, his ambition, his loyalty, his vision, and his potential, but they forget the most important truth. If you don't know yourself, you can never truly know him. You will judge him from a place of confusion. You will misinterpret his actions based on your insecurities. You will project your fears onto him and then complain that he is not giving you what you deserve. The problem isn't always that he doesn't know who he is, it's that you don't know who you are. And until you establish that, you will always find yourself caught in cycles of disappointment, frustration, and compromise. To know yourself means you start with identity. Identity is the anchor of your life. Without it, you drift. With it, you stand unshakable. Who are you beyond titles, roles, and relationships? Too many define themselves only by being someone's partner, someone's supporter, someone's companion. But when those roles shift, they feel empty, like they no longer exist. That is why identity cannot depend on someone else. It must be built from within. You must know who you are when no one is clapping, when no one is watching, when no one is choosing you. That is where true confidence comes from, not from being needed, but from being complete in yourself. The second part of knowing yourself is clarity of standards. Standards are the invisible lines that separate queens from those who settle. If you do not know what your standards are, you will accept whatever treatment is offered. You will excuse what you should reject. You will stay in places that drain you instead of walking toward places that build you. But when you have clear standards, you send a message without saying a word. Standards are not about arrogance. They are about self-respect. They are about declaring through your actions that you will not compromise your value for temporary attention or empty promises. The stronger your standards, the more naturally respect is given to you. The third part is alignment with values. Values are the foundation of your life, and if you are not clear about them, you will bend and break under pressure. If loyalty matters to you, then you cannot tolerate betrayal no matter how much you want to forgive. If growth matters to you, then you cannot tie yourself to someone who is comfortable with stagnation. If respect matters to you, then you cannot settle for someone who treats you as an option. When you know your values, you filter people effortlessly. You stop chasing compatibility with everyone and start seeking alignment with only those who fit your mission. The fourth part is ownership of your journey. Too many people hand over responsibility for their happiness to others, and when things go wrong, they point fingers. But when you know yourself, you take full ownership. You do not wait for someone to validate your dreams. You do not wait for someone to fix your problems. You do not wait for someone to rescue you from your struggles. You take control. You lead yourself. Ownership is the difference between living as a passenger and living as the driver of your destiny. And once you claim ownership, you will never again ask someone to complete you. You will only invite them to complement you. The fifth part is self-mastery. Self-mastery is about discipline. It's about control over your thoughts, your emotions, your habits. If you do not master yourself, others will master you. If you do not discipline yourself, your weaknesses will rule your life. Knowing yourself means you understand your triggers and your tendencies, and you choose to rise above them. It means you stop reacting impulsively and start responding intentionally. Self-mastery is rare, and that is why it commands respect. People follow those who control themselves, not those who are controlled by everything around them. The sixth part is independence. True independence does not mean isolation. It does not mean you do not need connection. It means you are whole before you connect. It means you are not looking for someone to fill a void inside you. You are looking for someone who adds to the life you have already built. Independence makes you magnetic because it shows strength. People respect someone who chooses from abundance, not from lack. When you know yourself, you never enter relationships out of desperation. You enter out of clarity, knowing exactly what you bring and exactly what you expect. The seventh part is authenticity. Knowing who you are allows you to live without apology. You do not water yourself down. You do not silence your voice to make others comfortable. You do not play small just to be accepted. Authenticity is about being real, raw, and unapologetically you. The world is filled with people wearing masks, pretending to be what others want, but masks are heavy and they always slip. Authenticity sets you free because you no longer need to perform. You attract those who respect you for who you are, not who you pretend to be. The eighth part is clarity of vision. If you do not know where you are going, you will follow whoever looks like they have a plan, and that is dangerous because you may end up building someone else's dream while abandoning your own. But when you know yourself, you also know your path. You know the future you are working toward. You know the legacy you want to leave. Vision gives you direction, and it prevents you from being distracted by temporary detours. When you meet someone, the question is not simply who he is, but whether his direction aligns with yours. That is how you build power couples, not power struggles. The ninth part is resilience. To know yourself is to know that setbacks do not define you. Failure does not break you. Pain does not erase your value. Too many lose themselves when life gets heavy, when relationships end, when disappointments come. But if you are rooted in self-knowledge, you bend but you do not break. You stumble but you do not stay down. Resilience is the proof of identity. It is the evidence that you know exactly who you are, no matter what you face, no matter who stays, no matter who leaves. The final part is leadership. When you know yourself, you naturally lead, not by demanding, not by controlling, but by example. Leadership means you set the tone. You show discipline, you show strength, you show clarity, and others cannot help but follow. Leadership is influence, and influence flows from authenticity, confidence, and consistency. You cannot lead anyone if you do not first lead yourself. And when you know who you are, you become the type of person who doesn't need to ask for respect, because respect follows you wherever you go.